We just saw Oculus, new horror movie. The way the show works, we'll talk really quickly about whether we like the movie or not and who we think would enjoy it. And then we'll get into a little bit more detail after that. I enjoyed the movie. I tend to like horror movies in general if they're a little bit more on the psychological side than on the, just straight up
jump scare,
gore for gore's sake kind of movie. This movie was pretty much a psychological horror movie, pretty much in your head and trying to figure out what you were seeing. Lots of visual, not visual horror, but visual sort of mystery or suspense. I thought was really good. It's very much a haunted house movie. It just happens to be that it's a haunted mirror in this case. And I thought it was not quite as good as movies like Insidious or The Conjuring, but it reminded me of that kind of style of movie. So I would say, if you're interested, if you like that style of movie and you're interested in checking it out, it's worth a watch. It's well paced, it's well told, and one of the things I really like about it is that it tells two completely. They're connected, but it tells the story in two timelines simultaneously. So you get sort of the child version of it, and you get the adult version of the story all at once. And I like the way that played out. What'd you guys think?
I think Dale covered it a lot. I'll say I'm a little out of my zone watching a horror movie because I don't watch a lot.
Yeah.
Normally, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to check it out, just for kind of something different. And I agree. I tend to like the more psychological ones when I do see them. I find them more interesting, and so that was definitely a good pick to go that route. I felt like the two storylines were easy to follow. I thought that was a fun way interesting way to tell the different stories, the way they split it in the movie itself. But I haven't actually seen Insidious or The Conjuring, so if this is like those, and you like those, then that sounds pretty good. Because overall, I kind of enjoyed it for not being a big horror fan.
Cool. Cal, what'd you think?
Yeah, roughly the same for me too. I do like the style of the haunting, which is kind of like messing with their minds. And there's a backstory that you learn about, piece by piece as they remember it. They're actually being haunted by their old memories. So they're basically in this house that something bad happened, and this object in the house, this mirror, is now back in the house, and so it's messing with their minds, and that's how we get to know what happened in the past, is through their memories, and they're being kind of haunted, and their minds are being twisted with that right now. So it's kind of a cool plot device telling us what happened. For me there was plenty of suspense, not too much blood and guts really, which I like. It's definitely a psychological horror film. It was definitely, I was never bored. A couple of parts were kind of predictable, but it was kept me entertained.
I don't feel like there were any big surprises.
No,
nothing huge.
Not really.
There wasn't, and so that's sort of our overview of the movie. We generally liked it, and if you're a fan of the genre, you'll probably enjoy it as well. It's not anything surprising or spectacular as far as redefining the genre or anything like that, but it's a very solid. The cinematography was really very good. The acting was great. Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica is in part of it, and she was really good in it. The other actress did fine too, but she kind of stood out as somebody that I've seen before. It's one of the things that's kind of we talked about how it shows like both these storylines at the same time. Basically, the two main characters in the movie are brother and sister, and they fight the mirror as children. And without giving too much away, their parents are involved in the first storyline, and they're not involved in the second storyline. That's pretty clear in the first act, so I don't feel like I'm giving too much away by saying that they the parents don't survive. But the way that they tell the story is they just sort of mention things about what happened before, and then as they revisit the house and revisit the mirror as adults, it starts sort of, it's not even necessarily a flashback, but it starts showing at the same time how they were dealing with it when they were kids.
And then they're dealing with it the same way as an adult, where everything's just mixing together, and they don't know what's...
And it'll switch between a scene where, like, the brother character is an adult and the sister character is a child in the same scene.
And sometimes it's actually a little bit confusing, but it's kind of cool, the tension between past and present.
Yeah. And it was confusing at times, but I thought it was, I don't know if I'd say novel, but I did like the way they handled a lot of that. Like sometimes it was purely in the past, sometimes it was purely in the present, and then they started mixing things up, and yeah, I don't feel like it ever got like all jumbled up. Like sometimes maybe you had to, but I think that's the idea, is they kind of want to,
because you're going through what they're going through. They're confused and they don't know what's real and what's not. So at times we don't either.
Yeah. So I think that worked, and I think it worked better that way than it would have if they had, told it in chronological order, or if they had cut the ending of the first storyline out and then came back to it in Act 3 and showed you what really happened.
Yeah.
Just some other ways of doing the storytelling. The only thing that I felt like it lost a little bit for with that was that, there's really only 4 characters in this movie, 5 if you count the girl's fiance as an adult, and 2 of them we know are going to die from pretty much the first act. It's just a question of how long it's going to take, but they actually spell out, he spells out what he thinks happened, and she spells out what she thinks happened at the beginning. They don't agree,
of course.
They don't agree at the beginning, and so we get to see as we watch, which of those, which version of that story comes true. So,
and that's something that's worth pointing out, is there's kind of a tension in the first act with they both came to a place of not healing but some kind of resolution. The brothers went through psychological counseling and is now convinced that it was all just stuff in his mind, what happened in the past.
Yeah.
And she's obsessed with supernatural, and this mirror must be haunted. So at the beginning, they're kind of butting heads as to what actually happened in the past, and so that's kind of a cool.
Yeah, and I was thinking even that drew out long enough that through a good chunk of the movie, I was still wondering. I was like, maybe these two people are just so messed up in the head. Like, maybe this isn't really a paranormal thing that's happening. Maybe it's exactly like what he said. Well, so I wasn't sure which way it was going to go.
Yeah, and that's still, the movie presents us with an interpretation of that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that you could say, that may just...
That's
the
true.
Whole movie could be in their
heads. Because you could still, even after seeing the whole movie, you could absolutely...
You could still argue that...
That's totally...
there was nothing supernatural going on. They were just messed up. Or
I thought that was one of the things I thought that was interesting early on, that gave you a sense of the type of haunting that the supernatural entity was doing. And there's a scene fairly early on where, she's got all these cameras set up, and they basically get back to the cameras, and obviously the cameras have moved. And, stereotypically you just assumed, oh, well, the ghost did it or whatever. But then they replay the footage, and it's the same characters having the exact same conversation they just had, but they're actually moving the cameras themselves and have no idea what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it immediately makes it clear that not only can it make you, see things and make you believe things aren't going on, but it's
You're
actually getting you to do things for it. So it has to act through people. It can't really act outside of that. So that was...
And unlike something like Inception, there's no totem, so there's no way to judge whether it's real or not, what's going on.
Yeah, and that was something that...
You thought the phone would be at one point, but then it messes up too.
They sort of make... They slowly knock out all the possible, verifiable narration. There's really nothing that you can hold on to as this is always correct or this is always factual. It's interesting too to think about, because invariably, horror movies tend to be fairly inexpensive to make, especially the first outing, and they'll try something, and if they want to, if it succeeds and they go on and make sequels, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, what a second movie like this would look like, or what a bigger budget version of this would look like. Because I actually thought the stuff with the cameras picking up, like, the cameras were the one thing that were trustworthy.
Yeah,
if
that's
you
true.
saw something through a camera, it
That's
was
true.
real.
Yeah.
Like when she's using her phone, that was showing
that's
her
true.
reality.
There was never any video recording.
So yeah, and even looking through a camera, like looking through her iPhone at stuff, like she would see stuff with her eyes that she didn't see through the phone. So that was an interesting thing, like an interesting trick, and that's something I would love to see explored more in a sequel, where there's more characters, but there's also cameras involved, and they're showing, two different versions of events, what they thought they saw and what the camera saw.
Yeah, and I was thinking I could easily see, because there's a whole bit in the first somewhere where the sister has obviously done all this research on this map or on this mirror, like where it came from and stuff, but there's never like that one thing like, this is what instigated the mirror or whatever, like this is who found it, this is what's possessing it, if something's possessing it or whatever. So I could easily see a follow-up being like somebody managed to like actually track that down, like find out the origin 100% instead of just here's the first verifiable record kind of a thing. Like maybe somebody does find something more. I could easily see it going that route.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, cool. Well, thanks for seeing the movie, guys. Hope you enjoyed our video review. Check out the channel for the rest. Subscribe if you enjoy it here on YouTube. And check out all my written reviews and videos at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.